and then utilize those desires within the parameters that your Lord has deemed right for you. Now, this can be done through prophetic tradition directly, but elements of it can actually be arrived at just through intelligence. And this is what's called the fitrah of people, which is why Aboriginal people, you will not see overweight Aborigines that are living in their traditional Aboriginal societies. Obesity is not a problem amongst Aboriginal peoples. Why is that the case? Because they eat until they're satiated. Obesity is not a problem. You don't see fat lions unless they're in zoos, because they're out of their natural environment. The same is true for any of the other appetites. That human beings have appetites, but when they're constrained within healthy boundaries, they're actually not only good for them, but they're part of the bounties of our Creator. And so this is really at the essence of the Islamic teaching, that there has to be this idea of constraint. Now, in this civilization, there was once something known as the 7 deadly sins. These were taught that people were susceptible to these mortal sins, these sins that would destroy human beings. Now, one of those sins was called sloth. Now, sloth is a very interesting sin because the original meaning of it was not laziness, but it was actually spiritual laziness. It was when people made no effort to improve their spiritual nature. It was an abandonment of the highest human project, which is to develop the soul and prepare it for the next stage of existence. Because for Abrahamic peoples, we do not believe that the soul ends with our death. We actually believe that there's a movement to another phase. And this is also consistent with the overwhelming majority of peoples on this planet who had some concept of afterlife. This is also being removed from modern society. And everything that is immediate, everything that is pleasurable in some immediate sense, is what is encouraged. Despite the fact that some of the most honored people in this culture are people that have a discipline to actually set aside immediate pleasure and work for many, many years in order to achieve some type of mastery in music, in athletics, in architecture, in languages, in whatever. But those people are actually honored. So people that have self-discipline in the world tend to be some of the most successful and some of the most honored people. So those people that are encouraged to indulge in themselves, to lose any discipline, to capitulate to their own desires, are usually the failures of society. And yet this is what is being presented to the vast majority of people on this planet today through mass media. I mean, this is what is being presented as your project. And the Abrahamic traditions, and certainly Islam as the culmination, the acme of those traditions, sees that this, in fact, is the worst thing for human beings to do. The Quran says, كَلَّا بَلْ تُحِبُّونَ الْعَاجِلَةَ. You love immediate things. وَخُلِقَ الْإِنسَانُ مِنْ عَجَلٍ. Man is created from this love of hastiness. And you put off what's coming, which is procrastination. The Quran warns people about this aspect. And so, this is at the essence of the Muslim view of the world. That the world is matter and spirit. That the human being is more than the sum total of his chemical and biological constituents. That we are actually people of spirit. And that it is the spirit that is actually more important than the matter itself. And that is why, in defense of the spirit, Muslims, as were Christians in the past, and certainly other traditions, are willing to sacrifice the matter for the sake of the spirit. And this is the highest act of sacrifice. Make sacred. That's what the word means in Latin. To make sacred. To take your life itself and make it sacred. To dedicate your life to the Spirit. And this is why the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said that the greatest sacrifice that a man can make is to speak the truth. To speak the truth. كَلِمَةُ حَقٍّ عِنْدَ سُلْطَانٍ جَائِرٍ. To speak the truth in the presence of tyranny. But this is the highest sacrifice that a human being can make, because there's nothing higher than truth. And truth, as we know it, is articulated through language. This is the closest approximation that we can get to. La ilaha illallah, or there's nothing worthy worship but God, is in essence an ineffable truth. It's something that we can't really say, but this is the closest approximation to that reality, and that's why we articulate it. But we recognize that we cannot know God as He is truly known, as He knows Himself, that human beings are limited. So that is the Shahada. If you move to the prayer, which is the next basis,